Good evening, everyone. For me, chess is not a profession. It's a way of life, a passion. People may feel that I've conquered the peak and will not have to struggle. Financially, perhaps that is true. But as far as chess goes, I'm still learning a lot. I just quoted our speaker for today, Mr. Viswanathan Anand, whose name is synonymous with the game of chess for us. He is India's first chess grandmaster, which he won at the age of 18, and he is the former world chess champion. He held the FIDE World Championship title from 2000 to 2002. He became the undisputed world champion in 2007 and defended it till 2012. Mr. Anand is the first recipient of Rajiv Khel Ratna Award in 1991. In 2007, he was awarded India's second highest civilian award, Padma Vibhushan. Making him the first sports person to receive the award. May I now request the Dean of Students, Professor Shiv Kumar, to welcome the speaker with the fruit basket. Thank you, sir. I request Mr. Viswanathan Anand to address the gathering.
Okay, thank you very much for that warm welcome. I thought I'll just run through my career till today and then perhaps take any questions that you might have. So I started playing chess when I was 6. I learned it from my mother. Her family used to play chess, so slightly unusual. Most people learn chess from their father. But in my case, my mother's family used to play a lot of chess. She played chess with her younger brothers, my uncles, and that's kind of how I got started. Then about 6 months later, my parents could see that I was spending more time with chess than was maybe to be expected, because they thought it might be just a fad. I might do it for a few days, get bored and move on. But in fact, I kept at it because something was attracting me to them. So then they put me in a chess club, something that he has also attended, by the way, Ashwin. So this was the Tal Chess Club in the Russian Cultural Center. I used to go there and play with all these people, but they were all much older. So initially, I had to really sort of find a way to show them that I could also play. And once they could see that I was actually a chess player, then they were quite nice about it. We used to play 5-minute games because nobody really wants to sit there the whole day playing one game. So what would happen was we'd play 5 minutes per player, 10-minute games. And the idea was a group of 10 or 12 people would get together. The winner would keep playing, the loser would have to get up and get in the queue. And this was great entertainment because in the more than the hour you needed to come back for your turn to come back, you had to entertain yourself. So typically it was the winner against the other 10 or 11 people. So they'd all gang up against you, suggest moves and things like that. Very entertaining, very nice way to play. I used to go every Monday, every Thursday, and every Sunday. So those were the timings of the club. Generally the idea was for me not to let it affect my school. So the idea was always I'd finish my homework and then run off. And Saturday, as long as I had done all my homework, Sunday I had to myself, so I could be there from, I think it was 11 till 7 in the evening. Uh, this went on for a while. Pretty soon I played my first chess tournament. I started by losing my first 3 games, but then I got a bye in the 4th, because already I was at the bottom of the pairing list. I got a bye and I was very, very proud. I went back every day till the end of the tournament. So I still have this book that they gave me for perseverance. So just turning up every day. But when you're 7 or 8, you hardly notice, you hardly even think that you shouldn't turn up every day. So for me, it just felt very natural. Then I was playing in the club, and at one point I remember my mother coming and talking to the guy running the club, and she asked him, how should my son improve? And he said, probably the best thing is for him to just keep playing often. So then she said, okay, I will put him in every weekend tournament that you organize from now till the end of the year, and we'll see how it goes. So I literally attended every weekend tournament for 2 or 3 years. And I was making steady progress, nothing sensational, but then I had a kind of breakthrough year when I was 13, where suddenly I literally went to the club to play the same people I had been playing for years and years. I played more or less the same style and openings that I always played, but I started, I won all my games. So instead of my normal score, which was 4 or 5 out of 6 games, I made 6 out of 6. Then I went to the national team championship, and this was a very special thing because we were entered as a junior team. And then I won the top board prize there. And then this top board prize meant that I could then play the national qualifier, so the men's qualifier. None of this was in the program. If I had not won the board prize, I would not even have qualified for the other thing. So it was a very unexpected, nice, the summer holidays of 1982. So I went to Ahmedabad to play the national qualifier. I qualified there as well. So suddenly I was playing the men's championship. And after that, I went back to the national sub-junior. But now, I had played 3 years past, but suddenly this year, I don't know, maybe it was my name that I had done all these things, but the points started coming in very easily. I won that tournament easily. I won the national junior, and I finished 4th in the men's championship. So in the space of about a year, I went from being just a club player to number 4 in the country. And this came out of the blue, but it taught me something that has often recurred in my career, is that sometimes when you're working, you don't really feel yourself getting better or things really changing. But then one fine day you'll suddenly have this spurt. I've not only seen it with myself, I've seen it with many other people as well. So it's a trait that comes often. The idea is that you keep working, and then one day enough pieces fall into place that you can have a big jump. Just to go back a little bit earlier, I had a brief period in Manila when my father was posted there, and I spent 1 year there in what was then probably the chess capital of Asia. So the Philippines was very, very active, and that was a place where I could deepen my interest in chess. Again, my mother went, she found a chess club for me. And there's a nice story with a famous grandmaster there, a man called Eugenio Torre, Asia's first grandmaster. So my mother called him, and he picked up somehow we got his number, she called him, we picked up the phone. My mother was so excited, she said, just 1 minute, Mr. Torre, my son wants to speak to you, and gave me the phone. So I spoke to him. Anyway, it turned out it was not him, it was his brother. But anyway, he suggested where I could go and play a tournament. And then he told me something interesting. He said, we're going to start a TV program where you will maybe learn something. Every day we will have this TV program. Unfortunately, this 1 hour TV program on chess was always while I was in school. So my mother would write down the whole program. the game that how they showed, plus there was always a puzzle at the end. And when I came back from school, after I did my homework, we would sit and she would show me the game, and we'd solve the puzzle together and send in the answer. So they would draw lots of the correct answers, and a couple of times I won the prize. And then it kept happening. I mean, still you have to have the probability of having your name pulled out, but I won so many of these prizes that they told me to raid the prize. You could pick up a chess book and go. But one day they said, why don't you raid the whole library if you want, but it'd be better if you didn't keep sending in your answers. Anyway, the reason I came back to this was for many, many years, my only source of knowledge were these chess books that I picked up in this TV studio. And that was all the knowledge I had, plus practice, simply playing over and over again, blitz games, so these 5-minute games plus tournaments. And I think still this is the best way to get better at chess. The thing is, if you learn something through coaching or you try to read it from books, but you don't get this feeling of playing it over the board, then it's very abstract in your head. Whereas if you play it a few times, you get this kind of real world practical experience and you understand the concepts much better. So I was now ready to try for the Grandmaster title. So roughly 1986, I had won the Asian Junior, I had become an international master, but no one from India had ever become Grandmasters. That was like our big mental block at that point. The one question floating around for everyone was, why can't we produce one Grandmaster? Very similar to what happened later is, why can't we win an Olympic gold, or why can't we, very similar thing, and that was the kind of pressure. And there were a group of about 4 of us who were trying for the Grandmaster title. I spent 2 years missing it by half a point always. So the way it works is you play in tournaments where a Grandmaster norm is defined as a certain percentage. It can be 70%, 75%, 68%, whatever. And these percentages depend on the strength of the tournament. The stronger the tournament, the lower the percentage, obviously. And if you attain this, scored this percentage 3 times, totaling 24 games, then you got the title. I went through 2 years where I was always missing by half a point in many, many tournaments. Then in 1987, I took an enforced break from chess because I had to finish my +2. In December 86, I stopped completely. 3 months, I was only sitting and studying, and I had not touched the chess pieces. And then when the school holidays, after the exams, when the holidays started, I passed, by the way, so when the holidays started, I could start playing chess again. And the same sensation that I had earlier in a slightly different version, which is that for no particular reason, you find that you start playing better. But this time I think it's just the fact that sometimes it's nice to take a nice long break. Though mine was enforced because of school, it's nonetheless a very good idea. You clear your head. It's very difficult to control how your head reacts to these things, but you can see some tendencies. If you work regularly, then one day it'll fall to pieces. Fall into place. And if you keep taking breaks, then you'll come back with a certain hunger again. Starting in about April, I started to play very well in tournaments. I won the World Junior that year, the first Asian to do so. And then in the end of the year, I finished my Grandmaster title in 2 tournaments. And that was almost kind of historic. So I was in every magazine, every newspaper. It was a fun time because before that, it's not like I was not in the newspapers, but chess itself wasn't, a lot of people weren't paying that much attention. But, become the first Grandmaster, that was a very big deal indeed. So a bit later, I had a very nice experience. I was traveling in a train, and the man next to me asked me what I did. So this is after I finished school and all. And I told him, well, I'm a chess player. And then he asked me again, yeah, but what do you do? So I told him, no, I'm a chess player. I'm not studying. I finished studying and all, and I'm now a chess player. Then he said, but do you have any job plans? Your father has a company, something. So I said, no, I'm a professional chess player. I'm going to make a living playing chess and this and that. And then he told me, well, young man, if you can take some advice, sports is a very tricky career in India. If you were Viswanathan Anand, you could make a living playing chess, but... And honestly, it's one of the most touching experiences I've ever had. Anyway, I didn't tell him, of course. So, but, so the next big thing was not very clear. So I became a grandmaster, and then right afterwards, I had to start finding something new to do. I went for a 6-month period where my results just dropped. In fact, I didn't make that required percentage for a grandmaster norm once in 6 months after I got the title. And you see, the point is that as long as you have a target, some fixed number that you can aim for, then you're very, very focused on that number. But once you don't have any target, then you find that half point more, half point less, nothing really matters. So you start drifting. But at the end of 6 months of bad results, I more or less pulled myself together. And I'd also spoken to a couple of other grandmasters. They said it happens to all of them, that getting your title is such a big deal that normally right afterwards, you have no idea what to do with your life. So anyway, some new goals had started to crystallize. I could aim to qualify for the next World Championship cycle. So it used to be a very, very elaborate, and still is, though modified, elaborate system. That is, within a country, zones would pool into states, which would then pool into regions, and then you would play the nationals, and then countries would be grouped into zones again, which would then go to the interzonal, and there they would pick the final 14 or 15 to be joined by someone to make it 16. And then the 16 people would play knockout matches till there was only one left, and the winner would then play the world champion. So very long, elaborate cycle, and that seemed like a very, very good goal to aim for. Also, they were very enjoyable years because as a grandmaster, you're no longer going there and looking for tournaments. They're inviting you, and they always give you the best conditions, and so they try to get you for their events, and it makes playing a lot of fun. So a couple of years of that, I qualified for my first World Championship cycle in 1990 actually. 91, the knockout matches started, which I mentioned. I won the pre-quarters, but then the quarters, I was immediately paired with Karpov, who had dropped down to the candidates because he had been world champion for 10 years and then he'd been playing these matches with Kasparov, and he had just dropped down, so we met at that stage. On paper, it looked pretty hopeless, but I started to work with a trainer for the first time. So it was only in the matches that I began to work with a trainer, and this time I hired a Soviet trainer called Gurevich. And for the first time, he taught me to approach chess on many, many levels. So his thing was, when you play Karpov, you really have to understand what he is trying to do. And so one of the peculiar features of Karpov's play was that he would he never really had a plan of his own. He was never trying to do anything at the chessboard, but he had an uncanny sense of what you wanted to do next, and he would do something to block that. And Gurevich explained to me that because of this, a lot of people got frustrated, unable to execute any plan of theirs. They got frustrated, and they didn't know how to play this waiting game with him. So we spent time on that. We spent time on, what happens when both sides have only 5 minutes, and then you feel more of a gambler because when your opponent has 5 minutes, you want to bluff and maybe see if he can solve the problems very quickly, things like that. But again, this has to be done very correctly because it can backfire like all gambles. So things like this. And it was a very, very interesting experience for me. Even though I lost the match, I would estimate that out of 8 games, I should have won 5. He should have won 2 and 1 should have been a draw. But as the fact that I lost the match shows, I didn't take 100% of my chances. I won 1 out of the 5 chances I had. Karpov won both the chances he had, and that was kind of the difference. But again, playing this match had a very, very good impact on my chess because suddenly being forced to work very hard with a trainer. So I grew a lot as a chess player, and for the next 3 years, I got invited to all the best tournaments in the world. So very similar to what happened as a grandmaster, but now at a higher level. I was playing all the elite tournaments. And again, this was just a lot of fun. So that went on for 3 years. I went in for the 93 cycle, qualified for the World Championship match in 95. Again, very similar experience, I would say. The first time I played the match, I'd heard versions of it, but I'd never experienced the kind of intensity of what happens. And the problem is in that kind of intensity, that kind of pressure, you do things that you don't normally do, and most of them bad. So you crack, you make blunders, you make nervous decisions, strange things begin to happen, and it's something that you can only explain after you've been through it once. So in the 95 match, I took the lead in the 9th game and then lost 4 out of the next 5. And I still cannot explain why this happened, except that I know that in these situations, these things can happen and you just have to be ready for it. I had another missed opportunity in 98, and then in 2000, everything clicked beautifully. It was my 3rd attempt, so I no longer had the feeling that this was something so special. You've been there a couple of times, and I think generally I would say I kept control through the whole event. No wild swings, no nervous decisions, just played very calmly, took my chances, and the 3rd attempt I became world champion. But this was the time when the chess world was split into 2, so there were 2 federations and all this chaos. Then my first tournaments as world champion again went very well. Both in January, then in May, I did very well in Holland, then in Mexico, so things were going well. And my play had begun to become a bit shaky, but as long as you keep winning tournaments, there isn't that urgency to deal with the problem. It's not that I was unaware of it, I had the feeling I should do something about it, but there's always this thought in your head, yes, we can get around to it, but there's no real urgency. Then in July, I had the worst tournament of my life. And the problem was that all these weaknesses which had started to creep into my game kind of accumulated. And then I was playing a super tournament where there were no real weak players or no players outside the top 10. And this combination meant that everyone was ready to take advantage of your slips, and I had not addressed these problems for a very long time. So I had the worst result of my life then. And this takes a toll on your confidence and self-belief because an experience like this, when you can't do even 1% of what you think you're capable of, well, it's very hard. So I pulled myself together just long enough to make a decent showing in the World Championship, which I was defending. I went to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, but still I lost in the semis and kind of a low point. Then for a few months, the results weren't really picking up. And finally, I did well again in April. I was experimenting a lot. I was trying lots of different things. And I also started to wonder whether my chess career was over. That kind of thought was cropping up. But in April, I played this tournament in Prague. And I won it more or less easily. And this time, I think everything came together, but in a very positive way. So after so many months of struggling, at some point you say, okay, the hell with it. Now I'll just play what I play. And you have such low expectations that there's a lot of pressure off you. Prague was a very nice city. We were in the center. The surroundings were good. So we were just happy in a nice place. And sometimes you feel very positive and things start to go very well. Then I had a 4-year period of basically, I would say, outstanding results. 2003 and 4 were better. In both years, I won we have a chess Oscar, so the chess Oscar for the best player of those years. And 5 and 6 were pretty good as well, though not as good as these years. And in 2005 and 6, I had gone almost 2 years without having any serious problems with the black pieces. So this was one of my strong points then. And in 2007, in my first tournament, I lost 2 games with the black pieces and to 2 of my nearest rivals in what was the upcoming World Championship. And this was a very special World Championship because I mentioned that there was a problem in the chess world with 2 federations earlier. Well, that problem had kind of been solved. The 2 sides had merged, and so for the first time we had a chance to win I had a chance to win the undivided, undisputed, if you like, world title. But this time the first thing I did was, as soon as I finished this tournament, I went and I sat and worked on these new problems which had started to appear. So it's normally if you talk about lessons that you learn, it's very abstract. But here I can say that I actually managed to put something into effect as soon as it happened. And the results also came very quickly. So sometimes you have delayed results, but this was nice. I started working for 2 weeks. I worked on the black pieces, trying to fix these holes. I won the tournament in late February and became world number 1 that year by the ranking list, and also won the world championship in Mexico. So just a very, very good year. Then from 2007 till 2012, I defended my title over and over again. I defended it in 2008 against Kramnik. And it's funny, I got the high point over with very quickly. So I played Kramnik and I won, and it was the best match I've ever played. So, I mean, already you have the feeling that it will be very difficult to repeat that kind of performance, which turned out to be the case, sadly. But it's for 2 reasons. One is, first of all, Kramnik and me have played more than 180 games with each other. And if you beat him convincingly, after our lifetime result was always very near 50%. So if you beat someone that convincingly, you have to think it's a slight aberration. You performed well above your thing. He clearly made some very clear mistakes, but it'll be hard to repeat that result. The second thing, of course, my opponents were also much better prepared the next time because they made a note of the things that Kramnik did wrong, and that's how it goes. So in 2010, I defended my title against Topolov, 2012 against Gelfand, and till 2008, I was not only world champion, but also world number 1 on the ranking list. After After 2008 till 2010, I was world champion and world number 1, but not all the time. So not in every rating list. So I would be number 1, then number 3, then number 1, then number 6, then number 1, like this. It was kind of wobbling. So I think that what happened in this phase was that because I was playing these matches so much, and the normal tendency would have been to play a match every 2 or 3 years. But what happened was, due to some pending problems from the reunification, which meant that a lot of competing claims to play these matches were still pending, I was defending my title over and over and over. And what happened was, I basically played 6 world championships in 8 years, or 5 matches in 7 years, whichever way you want to look at it. And this was a very, very heavy schedule to keep up. And so I was beginning to rust a bit in terms of my chess. I was not keeping track of every detail. I was not keeping track of every other player. From 2000, I went through a 4-year period where I didn't win a single tournament. Good results, but you have to, if you don't win a single tournament, that also says something. Then finally, when I started to win tournaments again, it turned out to be a little bit late. So clearly, this time, even being aware of it, I let this problem kind of fester. And then I had a match against someone who actually was winning a lot of chess tournaments, Carlson. This match happened here in Chennai, so it was a pity to lose it here, but that's the way it goes. And surprisingly, after losing the match, I started to win a lot of tournaments again. I won 4 tournaments since 2014 began, and I won the candidates and got to play a second match, which I lost as well. But at least I have the feeling right now that things are looking up, and I'm playing good tournaments, winning them, and these things kind of add up. You win a tournament, you go to the airport in a good mood, you sleep in a good mood, life feels good. If you keep on having bad results, it can weigh you down. So right now, at least things feel broadly positive. And this year there is no World Championship match, so I'm trying to play as many tournaments as possible. I'll play next month in Baku, in a town near Baku in Azerbaijan, and that's kind of where it is right now. So, thanks.
As part of your homework before a major chess game, what do you do?
Well, the first thing, and this is a matter of routine for everyone, is that if you play chess often, you will have something we call a repertoire. That is, you will have your favorite schemes, which consist of positions that you like playing and ways to get there. So by this I mean that if you have 5 positions that you like playing, you'll try to drag your opponent there. Chess players are specialists. Nobody's good at everything in chess. People who are good at one thing in chess will be weak in other things in chess and so on. So you're trying to bring the play to the areas you feel most comfortable in. And you're also trying to find the positions that your opponent is uncomfortable in. But this goes both ways. Your opponent is trying to do the same. So it's a question of outfoxing each other. If I know what I'm good at and what I want to aim for, then amongst all the positions I would like to aim for, I would particularly like to aim for the position that my opponent hates. So obviously the maximum is what I like playing, what he hates playing. If they coincide, then great. So you try to work towards that, and your opponent will try to do the same, and he'll try to drag you away. So then at every move, you think, well, if this is what I want to do, will my opponent be able to guess that? If he'll be able to guess that, then either he allows me to go down the path I want, but he wants to deviate somewhere, or he will deviate even earlier. And that's basically what preparation consists of. When you prepare for a specific opponent. General preparation consists of in expanding the number of positions that you feel comfortable in. So if there's some position you don't feel comfortable in, you keep hammering away at it till you develop some level of comfort with it. And you also try to learn new positions, maybe even neutral ones. You may not be comfortable and uncomfortable, but you don't know enough about them. So you try to pick up those. Because the more positions you're comfortable in, to give an analogy, the more cities you know very well, the less easy it is for your opponent to take you somewhere where you'll feel unfamiliar. It's that kind of thing. So you keep working on your chess knowledge, not only your strong points, but your weak ones. And you have to be aware of what your opponent is doing. Then there's what people do all over the chess world, which is constantly work on different areas of the game. So whenever you have an opponent, you have to think, is there something else going on that might attract him? Is there something else going on which attracts me? So people are constantly finding new stuff. You try to keep an eye on everything. I mean, the workload is huge. I have a computer database of all the games played in the last 600 years. Not every single one, but according to certain criteria, pretty large. My database is about 10 to 12 million games. There are bigger ones if you start taking games played at lower levels and things like that. So it's impossible to keep track of everything, but you still have to try. You have to try and get as much of a bird's eye view of what's going on. Then you have to know exactly what you're aiming for, again, to the best of your possibilities. And then it comes down to percentages, the chances that your opponent guesses badly and you guess well, the chances that you find some weakness that you're able to exploit, all these things. That's the broad description. Before a game, it varies hugely. Some days I might want to prepare 3 hours before the game because I know exactly what I'm working on, or I feel that I have to catch up in certain things. But some days it can be equally healthy just to do nothing, to wake up late, not look at switch off your computer because it keeps your head free. Like I said, whichever works, eventually you'll do a mixture of both, but that's basically what chess work consists of.
Please draw an analogy between luck, success, passion, and making a living. Please draw an analogy and making a living.
Well, chess is supposed to be a game without luck. And that's not entirely true because I wouldn't say unexpected, let's say illogical things will happen at a chessboard. By illogical, I mean that if it's logical that a certain result should appear, but suddenly your opponent blunders or something like that happens, you get a result that's better than what you should have gotten, then you can call that a bit of luck. Sometimes it's circumstances. You take a gamble and it works. But again, it's very hard to draw the line between luck and skill here. It could be that your opponent's blunder was unexpected, but on the other hand, it could also mean that he's not been brushing up on his skills. And the more you work on your skills, it lowers the probability of... so success and luck in chess are correlated. In general, you'll be successful if you're lucky, and you'll be lucky if you've done something to deserve that luck. Very similar to life. You'll have chances, but if you don't do the work... If you haven't done the work, and it doesn't have to be yesterday, it can be at some point in your life, but if you haven't done the work to recognize your luck and to be able to utilize your luck when it appears, then luck won't apply. So they're correlated, but you can't just lie down and say, hopefully I'll get lucky. You still have to go through the motions, and maybe one day you will be lucky. What was the third one?
I think I lost the question.
Passion. Passion is, I think, simply finding chess fascinating. And there are fields in life which you will not do. I mean, chess is not a job you do to keep your parents happy. It's the kind of job you do because you really love playing. So if you have this luck that you never lose interest in the game and the game keeps fascinating you, then you'll constantly have the will to learn new things, because that's how you got into chess in the first place, because you found the game fascinating. It's a puzzle that you can't solve. You learn new things, and that's kind of how it begins. So the same thing, if it keeps on reappearing, then that's essentially passion. And again, to come back to luck, if you have the luck to be passionate about chess, then it's a good idea to do it. But it's only something you should do if you really, really enjoy it. And making a living, it's changed a lot. Once upon a time, only people in the Soviet Union could make a living because the state supported it in a big, big way. But slowly, the pool of players able to make a living from chess is expanding. Now I would say it's quite large because many people in many countries are full-time chess professionals and things like that. In India, it's changed positively. Not only chess, other sports, but especially chess. So if you remove the train conversation, this man was clearly alluding to something. And one of the things I noticed most when I was young was where I would speak to either other sports people or other chess players, or people who had not become chess players for a living. And they would say, I really love the game, but my parents wanted me to get a real job. I couldn't see how to make a living in this sort of thing. Now that's changed a lot. So a lot of people are able to make a living from chess. But still, it comes down to two things. You have to like the lifestyle, because it is a special, unusual kind of job. I would say this for sports in general. You have to like the lifestyle. It's not enough that the money is good or circuit's big enough. If you don't enjoy every moment of it, if you don't enjoy the travel, the timings when tournaments happen, the irregular lifestyle where you come at home and then you might disappear for 3 weeks, then you come back home, that kind of thing. If you don't like every aspect around it, then the chances are you'll end up having to force yourself to play at some point, and that's not healthy. But if you like the game, then certainly, like I do, I feel it's been a very rewarding experience.
Which chess piece do you identify yourself most with?
Everybody says that well, one of the things in chess is the relationship between the bishop and knight, because they're the same value, or so we are taught when we were young. But now, pieces are measured in units of a pawn, and so typically people used to say a bishop and a knight are both worth about 3 pawns. That means that when someone has 4 pawns for your bishop or knight, they tend to win, but if they have 2, you tend to win. But then there are some people who argue that a bishop is slightly stronger, so maybe it's 3.15 versus 3 or something like that. But a lot of people have mentioned that subconsciously or by design I aim for the knights, and I like shuffling around with my knights. Clearly I do it subconsciously because I'm not very aware of it, but that's what people say.
How would you define Magnus Carlsen?
I think what stands out in him is consistency. He's good enough in a lot of positions, which, like I mentioned earlier, if you're good in a lot of positions, your odds go up. The chances are you'll find yourself in a position that you are not too bad at. If you're not too bad at it, you'll make good moves. And he's very consistent, which means that if you study his games, he doesn't make... he very rarely does things that make you sit up and take notice, but he very rarely makes bad moves. If you look at all his games, he might not have a high percentage of the best move, but his percentage above in the top 3 moves is like 95%. So I think he's consistent and he has a broad knowledge of chess.
Do you remember an incident when you went completely blank during a game? How did you bounce back?
Sadly, very often. So it happens sometimes. You're thinking very deeply about a position, and then suddenly you start to think about something that happened to you that morning or yesterday evening, or something that some other player mentioned, and you start to think about it, and then you tell yourself, wait a minute, I've still got a game to play. You come back to the game, and you realize you've forgotten all the calculations you made in the previous time, and you have to start from scratch. The second example is we used to play blindfold games. So once a year we had a tournament where you played blindfold games. How this works is we both are sitting in front of a PC with a chessboard on it, but the pieces have been programmed out. And what happens is only the last half move appears. So either the last white move appears or the last black move appears on the screen. Now that's some information. If I see that the last move was black's 18th move was 18 bishop c2, for instance, then I can quickly reconstruct the game. And most of the time that works. But there are many times in the blindfold where for a minute you take your eyes away and then you look back and you realize you've forgotten everything. You can't remember anything about the position, even the last 3 or 4 moves, and then you have to try and reconstruct it. But even in normal games where you can see the pieces, it happens quite often. The problem is simply the depth of chess. When you're calculating, there is the position you have on the board, and there are all the things that could happen. And what happens is when you go down very far down some trees of variations, so you have the position of the board, you have 3 or 4 moves for your opponent, that you can make, and then your opponent has 1 or 2 responses for each one, and you have to check all these possibilities, and you go very far down. At some point, you lose track of where you are. You still remember most of the stuff, but you have to come back and think, well, what exactly, you have to sort of go back to the starting position and say, if I do this, what did I check? And you have to check the essential thing and come back. And so this happens once in a while. It's good if you have a cushion of time when you can afford to reconstruct it, but if you don't, well, you take the best gamble you can.
What was going on in your mind for the 1.5 minutes, the famous 5-minute game against Carlsen?
Which 5-minute game?
What was going on in your mind in the 1.5 minutes that you took to play a move in the Blitz game?
Well, what can I say? My position was quite bad, and then he unexpectedly blundered. But the problem was, there was a plan on the queen side which I was trying to execute, and I was so focused on the plan, I didn't look at the rest of the board. And then, so I continued with I even thought for a few minutes, but I was not even looking at the left-hand side of the board. I was only looking at the right-hand side of the board, and I made my move. And then suddenly when I took in the whole board again, I immediately saw what happened, but by that point it was too late.
Given a chance, what would you change in your childhood?
My childhood?
Yeah.
I can't think of something. I mean, there are things probably I would have liked to have learned and done, but I can't see how that would not have come at the expense of chess. So it would have been a choice rather than something I like to do.
Okay. All right. 2 questions here. What was your approach to the 2014 candidates after the loss to Madras in 2013? And how did you motivate yourself? And the next question is, will you be taking part in 2015 candidates?
Okay, the last one first. I will play the candidates. It's scheduled for 2016 March or whenever. It's not been announced yet, but I will play. And to explain why, I will go back to my decision to play in the 2014. So, in fact, there was never much doubt in my mind really about this. But the confusion came was because I was asked a question at a moment when I was, to put it mildly, not very happy with myself. And he said, well, are you going to play the next cycle? And I was kind of dismissive of his question because I really still hadn't gotten over the loss. So somehow what I'm going to do next didn't seem like a terribly important thing. And as I will point out, it doesn't really matter what answer I gave, but I will come to that in a second. So I told him, yeah, I don't know, I'll take a decision on it later. And unfortunately, sometimes even journalists, some themes are in the air and that's all they can think about. So they tend to focus on that. So what happened was, for a while, the only thing they could think of me was Anand and retirement. And so that became like a memo out there, and for a while I was being constantly asked, when are you going to retire, when are you going to retire? Though in fact, I had not particularly leaned in that direction. But it was a low moment for me. I mean, I had been struggling for a very long time in chess, and then came this match, and I played it horribly, and I simply decided, well, I'm not going to take a decision till I feel better. And there's still some time. I mean, the deadline to accept was sometime mid-January. So there was no hurry to particularly accept in a hurry. So I decided to leave it at that, and but sometimes you don't have any control over this narrative that once journalists get obsessed about a certain theme, that's all that happens. But then I decided to play the candidates. I signed my contract, sent it. And there were still people who felt that if I might still withdraw at the last minute, though I couldn't see why. And then I noticed something, which is that for the whole of 2014, I would be asked one question in any press meet or press event, which is, what are your plans? Are you going to retire? Which was annoying because first of all, I'd never meant to start this idea. But the second thing was, if still in October, if I'm being asked if I'm going to retire, that means they have not bothered to read the question, the answers I gave for the last 9 months. And it also meant sometimes the same guy would ask me the same question again, which meant that he didn't even pay any attention to my answer. He just repeat the same question over and over. So that there was never any thought of retirement is what I'm trying to say. By December, I decided that even if I didn't have any high hopes for the candidates, and in December 2013, I had no real hopes. I wanted one good result. I simply wanted one good result just to feel better about chess again. And I thought it might as well be the candidates. I mean, why should it be some other tournament? It might as well be the candidates. So I played. I didn't really motivate myself in any sense other than to think I was hoping for a top 3 finish. So when I went to Russia, I was hoping for a nice top 3 finish. And I thought, well, that's a good place to park it. And then we can take it as it comes. But I even won. So.
Please tell us about one game of yourself which you can never forget.
I played a couple of games with Lothier in Switzerland in 1997. Both those I remember, and in fact that was a very special tournament because I played 3 games that I would put in this category. I played a game with Kramnik in 1998. So there are a few games probably from the World Junior and so on. And you think these such special games you will not repeat very often. But then in 2013, in fact my last 3 wins against Aronian, I would say I will never forget, all 3 of them. All 3 of them were very, very good. My win against Nakamura was very good. So again, Zurich was a very special tournament. Maybe I should play in Switzerland more often. And then I could probably come up with a few more. I mean, if I think I could probably get about 25, 30 games that I believe are really special. But these are the ones that spring to mind.
A technical question. In the last game of the recently concluded World Chess Championship, when you made the rook sacrifice, did you ever consider taking the bishop with the other pawn?
I did actually. I considered it, but the problem I thought was he would then push the pawn that had become a pass pawn. So if I took with the rook pawn, he would put his rook behind his pawn and start ramming it up my position, and I didn't see the logic in doing that. The problem again is a lot of people look at the computer and decide that some move is clearly better than another. Most of the time it's true, computers are much stronger than us. But sometimes what can happen is a computer may think that one move is 1/10 of a pawn better than another move, and people might not appreciate that difference. So in practical terms, that difference is irrelevant, but they think, wow, he made the second best move for no reason. But in real terms, the moves don't have much to separate them.
Apart from chess, do you play any other sport?
I used to play a lot of sports. I used to play badminton, tennis, table tennis. Nowadays, I generally just go for a swim or I go to the gym, I go running, I go cycling. So almost everyone is not a sport. I mean, I'm not competing with anyone. I can do it on my own. And that's how it goes these days. But occasionally, I'll play table tennis or tennis with someone. But I follow a lot of sports.
Okay, one last question. Sambar vadai versus Spanish paella.
It's no competition, and I think you can even guess. So, I mean, seriously, I've had good paellas, but I've never missed paella, to put it mildly.
Thank you for the very entertaining hour-long lecture. I'm sure we all loved it. We've been waiting for ages for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being here. Thank you.
May I request Mr. Viswanathan Anand? May I request Mr. Viswanathan Anand to leave a message for IIT and EML in the yearbook. I request the audience to kindly be seated for a couple of minutes. There's something special for one of you. Meanwhile, we had promised to give one lucky winner an autographed t-shirt, and I think we have the winner. He is Nagabhushan. If he's around, I'd like you to please come forward. So we have a few more interesting lectures coming up this month and next. So I'd like you to follow our Facebook page to know more. May I request Professor Ashwin Mahalingam to felicitate Mr. Viswanathan Anand with a memento. I request the EML team to come onto the dais so that we can have a picture with Mr. Viswanathan Anand. I think my cards have done a lot of work, and I think they deserve a bigger hand than this. Come.